What is going on, everybody? Welcome to our very first deck tech for week 1 of the JDC Season 3. We're up against the Rochester Hydras. We've got Rachel on the opposing side. She did pick a fantastic card, which is Felidar Retreat. A little worried about that one, I'm going to be honest, but I love that she's representing the new set. I, on the other hand, picked Oath of Teferi for Big Enchantments Week, which is very outside of my comfort zone by a long way. So let's talk about this card a little bit. We'll talk about the build, and then the gameplay for this should be going up tomorrow. So the idea is that Rachel and I will be recording tomorrow. She may live stream. I'm still kind of debating. I'd like to, but if I don't get the opportunity, we'll definitely record it, and we'll have it up on the channel, of course, for you. And just as a quick reminder, this is historic best of 3, so we do have a full sideboard to go through as well, which I know is outside of the norm for It Resolves, but I'm really excited about it. So let's look at Oath of Teferi. Legendary enchantment, 3, a white and a blue. When it enters the battlefield, exile another target permanent you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. You can activate loyalty abilities of planeswalkers you control twice each turn. That's huge. That is obviously the thing that we're going to be capitalizing on with this deck. The idea here is that we're really going to go over the top with a lot of awesome planeswalkers, and hopefully be able to keep her off of killing us by taking things like extra turns. So to do that, you'll notice we've got, as far as our Planeswalkers package goes, one of the big ones here is Teferi Master of Time, excuse me. Being able to double up on this ability, not only on your own turn, also on your opponent's turn, is pretty huge, because you can do a lot with this. You're not only allowed to draw extra cards, which is huge, but you can also phase out a creature you don't control if you really need to, and then eventually, the idea is, we get to start taking extra turns. Now, what are we going to do with those extra turns? Well, we've got more planeswalkers. So we've got Ajani, Strength of the Pride. Now, this seems like a little out of place, I understand, but one, this puts out creatures that block efficiently, and it can put out a creature and gain the life in the same turn if we've got Oath of Teferi out, which means this automatically is going to be stronger than her creatures. I love that. I think that this is really going to be a key card. We've only got 2 of them here, but it's enough to keep us in the game, keep us alive, and hopefully get us to that point where we can take those extra turns. Jace, Cunning Castaway, kind of a last-minute include, but definitely one that works. So obviously the idea here is we just get to start spitting out tons and tons of Jace, Cunning Castaway, because we can kind of start plussing him up and proliferating onto him with some of the other cards that we have, and then create multiples of him. Which is ridiculous. I think that is amazing. So the idea here is pretty simple. We just get a bunch of these guys out and then be able to spit out either our own 2/2s or draw a bunch of cards and hopefully do a lot with other ult abilities that we've got on things like Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. So this is obviously a huge one. We do only have it as a 2 of, but that's more because of mana constraint, not necessarily because we don't want this card. One, it draws us a card and then untaps a couple lands. The untapping thing really doesn't matter here. We are not an instant speed deck aside from the Teferi Master of Time, but this does allow us to, again, hopefully activate this ability twice, get us up to that ult very, very soon, and then ideally Emblem, where every time we draw a card, we get to exile a permanent that the opponent controls. That's any permanent. That could be a land, that could be a creature, that could be the enchantment itself, which is really, really huge. So the idea here is to get a Teferi Hero of Dominaria emblem out as quickly as we can, draw bunches of cards with Teferi Time Master, hopefully with the plus on Jace, and hopefully we can draw some cards there, and ideally start exiling just her entire board. Our last Planeswalker here is Ugin the Spirit Dragon, again as a 2 of. This is a really easy ultimate on turn, like, 0. Not turn 0, but as soon as you get it out. Because essentially you can plus it up twice in the same turn if we've got Teferi on the, or Oath of Teferi on the battlefield, get it to 11, and then ult it the next turn, or with, again, some of these proliferate triggers that we'll be talking about here, we can actually just ult it the same turn that we play it and really start to take over. Obviously, we've got a lot of permanents that we'd love to get onto the battlefield, and so this just helps us do that. Now, you may be looking at this deck and wondering, why in the world do we have Mirror March? I'm trying something silly. This is the JDC. We're trying something silly. This is the silly part. Yeah, the rest of it was not the silly part. So the idea here is we've got a couple of creatures here that do a lot of things for us as soon as they can kind of come in. So Grateful Apparition, anytime it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, you proliferate. Guildpact Informant, very, very same mechanic, just a little bit more expensive. The idea here is if we can get a Mirror March out, whether that be off of an Ugin ultimate or just playing it out, and then play one of these guys, we get to get in there, proliferate like crazy with all of the tokens that come off of the Mirror March, and then hopefully take over that way. It's a really silly play. It only works like maybe 5% of the time, but it is really fun. It's really silly, and so that's kind of our game plan there. We also do have Fblthp here as a way to just draw a few cards, and again, with that Hero of Dominaria ultimate, being able to draw some cards really does a lot against the opponent, and so in a sense where we play Mirror March and then we play Fibblethp with the emblem out for Hero of Dominaria, we actually just start to like shoot all of the permanents down, which is kind of crazy. You may notice a few things about this deck. We are not running any main deck Wraths. We're not running any main deck counters. We're not running any just art or enchantment hate off the face of this. I wanted to do that because I want to focus on our game plan. That's kind of the agreement with JDC, is that we're looking to forward our own game plan before we're trying to kill the opponent's game plan. But that being said, we do have our sideboard, and we've got a few things in here that I think are interesting. So first things first, one of the biggest ones is Confounding Conundrum. It's an enchantment for 2. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card, already synergizes with the deck. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, if that player had another land enter the battlefield under their control this turn, they return a land they control to their owner's hand. I think this is really important for us. The reason being, obviously, she's looking to landfall a lot with Feldar Retreat. To be able to kind of slow that down, or at least not ramp her quite as hard with something like this, is really going to slow that down. And so most likely we will be bringing these in at some point. I'm also a little worried about the new Green Warden. Not hugely, but if she does look to play some things from the graveyard or something along those lines, I just wanted to try something like this out. It exiles the graveyard, so it makes it really difficult for her to do a ton. So we'll see if that works. Deafening Silence is an interesting one, but I think one that kind of works for us. Each player can only cast one non-creature spell each turn. I think that's really important because, again, I'm expecting a lot of things that she's going to sacrifice a land, go get more lands, or ramp cards where she's going to go get more lands. And so being able to only play one of those is going to slow her down. And ideally, we're going to have a much bigger hit with our cards because all of our cards are planeswalkers and we can activate them twice. So I'm actually okay with only playing one non-creature spell per turn, but I'm hoping that she won't be. Clear the Mind here is actually in because sometimes this is very likely that we just kind of deck ourselves at some point because we do draw quite a bit. So I wanted to have something in here to kind of shuffle it in if we needed to. If the game starts to go long and we find ourselves needing this in games 2 and 3, we can kind of bring this in as a 2-of. And then finally, we do have a few sweepers here. Again, we're expecting a lot of cats on Rachel's side of things, or on the Rochester Hydras side of things. And so being able to wrath the board is going to be huge, especially because this does only hit creatures, obviously. We've got very few. And so I think that this actually works for us. We'll see how things go. I'm very nervous. Feldar Retreat seems like an amazing card. There's already a lot of really awesome builds around it, so I'm wishing Rachel the best of luck, but I think we've got an interesting build here. We're going to do our best to get around it. I had to shove in the Mirror March. You guys knew it was going to happen. Nobody suggested it. I was a little upset, so I'm playing it this time. But I really hope you guys enjoy it. Like I said, gameplay should be up tomorrow, so do stay tuned for that. And thank you guys so much for all your support on the JDC so far. Hopefully it goes well. And again, good luck to Rachel. I'm looking forward to seeing how this works out.